Dzień dobry. That means good day in Polish. Welcome to the MakerBox kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the classic Polish dish pierogi. Pierogi are dumplings that are boiled and then fried, and they're fried in heaps of butter and onion. They're very delicious. I grew up eating them in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and whenever I moved here to New Zealand, I couldn't get them in stores. No restaurants sold them, so I had to learn how to make my own. And this recipe is really great for the whole family to do because there's a step that everyone of any age can participate in. So you don't have to be an adult to do this. You can be a kid, you could even be a wee little one. All ages can participate in this. The ingredients that you're gonna need is, well, first of all, you're gonna need a big bowl. And definitely the bigger the bowl, the better, because you're going to be making dough and you're going to be making a fair amount of it. So a big bowl. And for ingredients, you're going to need flour. This is our tub of flour. So it's just normal flour that you would bake with, normal white flour. You're going to need, let me see how much, 3/4 cup. 3/4 cup of boiling water. You're going to need some salt. And some extra virgin olive oil. I'm getting very low. Hopefully you have more at home. I think I'll have enough for this recipe, fingers crossed. So let's get started. The first thing we're gonna need is our flour. And we're gonna need 3 cups of this. Level it off. You will be using your hands for this recipe. In a lot of steps, so I recommend definitely washing them before you start. Want nice clean hands. And 3. So that's your flour, 3 cups. Then you're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just want to level it off. I'm going to mix that all up. Let's mix the salt into the flour. Probably good. Now for this is really, really important. So this is our boiling water, 3/4 cup of boiling water. You don't want to add it all at once. If you do, it will not turn out correctly. So you need to add it a little bit at a time and then stir. So I'm just gonna pour a small amount and then stir some. And I know from personal experience that you don't want to add all the water at once. One of my very early tries making this, I skipped that because sometimes I just want to rush through my recipes just so I can eat the delicious thing that I'm making. And it was just a mess. We couldn't use the dough and had to throw it away. So definitely want to take it slow with the water. So the texture you're looking for with this is you want like to be pretty crumbly, almost like a pie dough if you've ever made pie dough before. So you can see how we're starting to get some little lumps forming. That's perfect, that's what we want. You can just sort of break them up a bit. Now we're getting some really big lumps there. So I'm just going to add in the rest of this water. And instead of using the fork, I'm going to start using my hands just to crumble down the really big lumps. Make sure that all the flour has some moisture. This is really fun for younger kids because it's very tactile. But I don't know, I'm an adult and I have fun doing this too. Oh, and there's one more thing that I forgot to mention that you will need, and that's a towel. And that towel is just to put over the dough And you're gonna let it sit for 5 minutes. So you can go and do something else for 5 minutes while you wait. It's now been 5 minutes, so our dough is ready for the next step, which is to add 1/4 cup of cold water to the dough. So we're going to take the towel off, and we're going to stir in this cold water. And again, we're going to want to be crumbling down any lumps that start to form. I just want all that flour at the bottom to be getting moisture. Whereas like right there, that was quite goopy, just that little section of dough with lots of dry dough at the bottom. Okay, so now that that's all mixed in, I'm going to cover our bowl again. And now we're going to wait 15 minutes before coming back to it. It's been 15 minutes. Now we're ready for our last step with our dough, and that is to add the extra virgin olive oil. So for that, we're going to need just a 1/2 teaspoon. So remove your towel. Pretty sure I have a 1/2 teaspoon here, fingers crossed. There we go. So now that we've got the extra virgin olive oil in, we can actually start to mix this together and start to knead our dough a little bit. And you're going to knead out for between 5 to 10 minutes. What you're going to be looking for is for your dough to be uniform, so not like it is right now. You can see that some parts are lumpy or some parts are a bit smoother. And you're also going to want it to be stretchy and a little bit sticky, not too much. So by now you should have some nice uniform dough. Shouldn't be any lumps in it. It should be a little bit stretchy, or in this case, a fair amount stretchy. Yep, so you should have your dough all ready to go. For now, we're going to put this aside. Now, if you are doing this recipe and you're not just listening to me do it in order, if you can be multiple places in once, or if you have multiple people, what you can be doing at the same time as somebody's making your dough is you're going to have one person making your filling, and that's what I'm going to show you how to make now. For the filling, you'll need about 4 to 6 potatoes, depending on how large each potato is. It's up to you. If you make extra filling, that's okay. You can always eat it later as mashed potatoes. So you want to chop them into small pieces and then boil them, and now they're ready for the next step. You're also going to want a package of goat feta. You can use regular cow's feta, but goat feta gives you a really nice taste. So that just nice sharpness for the pierogi. So if you can get it, goat feta is what you want. You're also going to need 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And 1 cup onions, chopped. If you don't like a lot of onions, you don't have to put a lot in. It will not ruin your recipe. You'll also need 1/2 cup of some sort of cheddar cheese. So we've used Edam, we've used Tasty, we've actually even used Colby, so it doesn't even need to be a cheddar, but you do want a cheese with some sharpness if you have it. And you're also going to need 1 teaspoon of butter. So for the next step, we're going to take the onions and the butter over to a skillet, and we're going to melt the butter over the medium heat before adding the onions and cooking them so they're soft and golden brown. So now we have our onions all cooked and ready to go. So we're going to start mixing the stuff up into our potatoes. So stick every ingredient in. feta. A half teaspoon of salt. And a half teaspoon of pepper. And now we just start mashing. So it's just like mashed potatoes, mash everything together. If you have a potato masher, use it. It will make things easier. We don't, so we're just gonna use a fork. So now you should have your dough and your filling. So that means that you're ready to actually start assembling your pierogi. Before you start this step, you might want to put a pot of water on the stove so it can start boiling. So what you're gonna need now, one last item, is a friend. So I've got one right here. Isn't that perfect? So this is really helpful if you can go in an assembly line. So I'm gonna have Seth roll out the dough because he's really good at that. So here you go, sir.
Go.
Once you have a nice thin dough, grab either a glass, which you probably have in your home. For the longest time, we didn't, so instead we bought some circle cookie cutters. So either one works, and you're going to create the shape of your pierogi. So just like cutting out cookies. And multiple people in the family can do this at once, so you can have more than one sheet of dough going. And now I can pass this over to Seth, and he's going to do the next step.
So I place out my dough circle, then I take, I don't know, a spoonful or a forkful in this case, sort of put it on one side of the dough, pull this over, and then tuck it around so you've got a little nice little lip around the dough. That'll be important for when you boil these. You don't want the filling to sort of seep out, and to really seal it in, it's kind of traditional to imprint it with the edges of a fork. So you've got nice little edges, and that's kind of your classic pierogi look right there.
That's a beautiful pierogi, Seth. Well done.
Thanks.
Once you assemble a fair amount of pierogi, then you can start putting them into your boiling water. Just drop them in for a swim. And you're going to want to leave them in here until they start to float. So it's hard to tell right now with all the steam, but they are not floating yet. So once they start to float, then it'll be time to take them out. It doesn't take very long though. So you want to have one person watching your pierogi while everybody else is still assembling the rest of them. Now our pierogi are beginning to float, so we're ready to take them out. And we're going to take them out of the boiling water into the frying pan. Because that's the next step, is we're going to fry these little balls of dough up, little pockets of dough. Got our pierogi in here, and our butter. Fry them all up. And you just want them to be golden brown on both sides. Now this recipe makes a lot of pierogi, so if you decide that it's too much for your family to eat in one sitting, it's totally fine, because these are amazing for freezing. Just boil, so when you're done boiling them, instead of frying them up, you can just stick them on a tray so that they're not touching. Chuck that tray in the freezer for about an hour or so until they're frozen solid. Then you can pack them away just like you would with any other food that you're storing in the freezer. And then the next time when you're ready to cook them, bring them out and fry them. Now you have pierogi. Serve and enjoy. Pa-pa!
Pa-pa.